Hey guys, welcome back for week 12 of our power rankings. It's the last one of the 2023 year. Happy New Year to everyone out there. But we'll get straight into it. I'll hand you over to Jaden for pick 32.
Yeah, new 32, San Jose. It's
Yeah, hard to argue that one.
pretty self-explanatory. They didn't win a game this week. They lost 5-1 to LA. Then on a back-to-back, lost 5-0 to Edmonton. So yeah, it's just been downhill for probably the last 2 to 3 weeks, and it's back to where they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, 7 straight losses now. Yeah, it's not looking good for them. They had a little glimmer of hope, but yeah, back to where they were. All right, pick 31, moving up the one spot. I have the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yep, same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just the fact that the Sharks were poor. They had a reasonably good week. All in all, they had a tough week. But they beat the Jets 2-1 in OT. And they lose to Dallas Stars 4-5 in overtime. So, two top 10 teams basically, top five even, you could argue. And they've taken it to both of them, taken 3 points out of the week. So, yeah, definitely deserved to move up the ranks, but couldn't justify getting them any further.
Yeah, I was the same. 30 for me. I have the Anaheim Ducks sitting where they were last week.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so it was just the win against Vegas, really good win, but then they get blanked 2-0 by Arizona. Though they were pretty competitive in the game. And that's the thing, they've been competitive, and it was a really good win against Vegas, but I just couldn't warrant the move up.
Yeah, I was the same. I think the recent form that they had prior to this week, even with that good win against Vegas, it's one win, and that's how I put it down. So I didn't want to move on them too quickly. They've looked really ordinary before that. So yeah, let's see if they can maybe find some form.
Mm.
All right, pick 29, another team staying where they were last week. For me, anyway, the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not fantastic for them. They lose 4-1 to Boston, and then they get the OT win against Columbus Blue Jackets 3-2. Um, but so I last week I had Columbus just above them. I've obviously still got Columbus above them, but even with that OT win against Columbus, it's not enough from Buffalo for me, and I don't know what's going on with them. The news of Tage Thompson on the long-term injured reserve is it's just made things worse, but yeah, I don't know when it's going to improve for them because they just don't look good.
Yeah, well, they've better results than like what a team that was below them, like in Columbus, but they just been playing poorly compared to them. Granted that they had a better week this week, all things considered, like doubled Columbus's shots, but yeah, they just still got a lot of holes, and that's why I've moved down on them, which is sad to see. Didn't think they'd be this low, but I guess I can go at 28 here. Columbus, the team I just mentioned, these two teams are pretty much neck and neck. You could have Columbus's week. They had a no, not great week, but OT loss against New Jersey. They OT win against Toronto. Then they OT lose on a back-to-back against Buffalo. So a lot of OTs didn't get maximum, but get 4 out of 6, which is all right. That's what you get when you go to OT. But they're still like they play good, then they don't play good. They got outshot pretty heavily this week, which is my concern with them as well.
Yeah, look, the reason I've got them above Buffalo and have had for weeks is I just think that they're more competitive in a sense. I know they give up leads regularly and too often. They'd probably be in the top 16 if they could hold a lead, but they seem to always be in and around games. Whereas in Buffalo seem to either blow a team apart or get blown apart. So yeah, I just like Columbus's consistency a little bit more than Buffalo's. Feel like if Columbus could just tighten that defensive aspect up when they've got a lead, they'll win more games. Whereas in Buffalo, I don't even know where to start with them. But all right, let's move on to number 27 for me. I've got the Ottawa Senators. Jesus, another team in a similar situation um, to Buffalo. Can't find them on my list. There we go. They again not nothing special of a week. They beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-2 to start the week off pretty good, but then they get absolutely destroyed by the Devils 6-2 at home. So yeah, a bit of a mixed week for Ottawa. It seems to be their season summed up is they'll get a good win and then they'll get destroyed. They'll get a good win, they'll get destroyed. So
Yeah,
nothing much has changed. So they've fallen down a position for me.
yeah, flat week for me. So didn't move, and like, look, they beat a good team. They lose to a team that's had issues pretty significantly. So yeah, they'll probably win the next game. They'll lose next game lose next two. It seems to be their season. Like you said, on to 26 for me. I have the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, that's where I've got them too.
I tossed and turned if I'd have this team one or two, one position above, but losing both games this week, Carolina and Florida, granted better teams. It's just honestly competitiveness in the games also. Only the 21 shots against Carolina, though they do lose 3-5, and then only the 19 shots against Florida, losing 1-4. So I guess that's my problem. There's the offense and consistency with their game as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, they're still a plus 500 team, which is crazy considering how low they are in the standings. But I just think that's where they are. I feel like
I
it'll
think
all
I think
come
all teams from
crashing
now
down.
are all 500. I think we've gone
Yeah,
through all the below 500s.
which is insane to think. We're only a handful of teams in, and everyone else is above 500.
Oh,
It's just
thank you, Chicago, San Jose, and Anaheim, basically.
yeah,
The-
that's actually right. All right, on to 25. I've got one of those teams that get to feed on those Western low teams, the Calgary Flames. They're probably a bottom feeder as well themselves, to be honest, at the moment.
mm,
But yeah, look, they only play the one game. They lose to Seattle 2-1. Hard to really measure anything. It's why I haven't, I didn't move them too far down and they weren't going to go up. But yeah, it's when you only play one game, what else is there to say? It's a tight game, but yeah, look, I think what was it? Jonathan Huberdeau's gone in the same time. Nathan McKinnon scored 27 points. Huberdeau scored none.
mm,
So yeah, it's pretty dismal for them at the moment, especially considering he's a $10 million man for them, and they're just not getting that production from him. And it just doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment for the Flames, and I don't know if that's going to change, especially considering they seem like they had a good enough team to, push this season for a wild card spot.
mm. Alrighty, 24, moving up, Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, same here.
Good week. Seems to be what they do. A couple bad weeks and a really good week. Two games, win both games versus Calgary, as we mentioned, and then beating Philly in OT. 2-1 as well. So low scoring games for Seattle. It kind of reminds me of last year with keeping teams to low scores with good defense. I don't know if that's the same recipe this week, like the way it works, but they're keeping low scores, so that's a positive in my eye.
Yeah, 100%. And, like their last 10 isn't anything spectacular, but, you've got to start somewhere. They're just below 500, but they're starting to get wins. So, and those OT points that they picked up along the way, They've 9 OT losses already. That's helped them stay in the hunt. So if they can start turning those into wins, especially in the Pacific, they're going to be a good chance to potentially snag even a wild card spot. They've just got to turn it on for long enough and get back to that last season's form. All right. In 23, I've got the Detroit Red Wings.
Yep, same thing here.
Yeah, they don't move for me this week. They didn't do too much. They went 1-1. Lose 3-6 to Minnesota, which was pretty poor performance. But then they beat the Nashville Predators 5-4 in overtime. Pretty decent win considering Nashville's form at the moment and Minnesota form teams in the league. So I don't hold that loss too much against them, even though I would have liked them to be a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, it's just been a sinking ship for me for Detroit, but they do get the 2 points from the Nashville game, though they do get outshot by 14 shots. So a little bit lucky, honestly, because it was a 4-4 game before going to OT. So 4 goals and 23 shots. It's not normally that you get that. But on to 22, St. Louis Blues. Once again, team not
Yes,
moving for
Amy?
me. They play 3 games this week. They beat Dallas, so it starts off really good. They lose to Colorado only by a goal, and then they lose on a back-to-back to Pittsburgh by 2. Yeah, all really close games, and they're in all of those games. And honestly, Dallas, Colorado, top 10 teams, and then Pittsburgh has been in good form, and you had to first them on a back-to-back. So meanwhile, they weren't on a back-to-back. So honestly, I couldn't punish them, even though they only get the 2 points.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was the same. I couldn't punish them, and there was no one really below them to warrant putting them up. And even if there were after that week, they were still really competitive across the board. Uh, 21 for me. I have the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, we're still going, are we? We're still even.
I think so. I don't think we've changed on anything, so that's pretty impressive there.
Hmm.
Nice little run. But yeah, Tampa Bay. What can you say about them? They lose both their games, but albeit it was a much tougher draw. They lose 2-3 to Florida Panthers, and then they lose 5-1 to the New York Rangers. So not the easiest of draws, but at the same time, you really have to think that you've probably got to put a better performance in against the New York Rangers. The only 21, although they did have 35 shots on goal to the Rangers 21, it just seems like it was a poor defensive game there. But yeah, that's why they didn't really move for me either. Stayed the same, or sorry, moved down one. But yeah, it's hard in this little week. What was there? 4 days of hockey or something. You play 2 games, competitive in one, not that competitive in the other. They had been okay prior to that. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to really call too much because
Alrighty.
what they're 6-4.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Alrighty. On to number 20. I have the Minnesota Wild. Um, Team that started off poor in the season, doing better now. They play 2 games. They beat Detroit and then they lose to Winnipeg. Even though they outshoot Winnipeg by 14 shots, so extremely good showing. And they had to move up for me. I probably would have moved up higher if they got the extra point against Winnipeg, at least going to OT. But very impressed with them, and they're still going up.
yeah, well, exactly. Still performing pretty good. And that, like I said before, they're one of the informed teams in the league. So crazy. It's 2 years in a row they've done it to us. It's been, you know, dead awful for the first 20 odd games of the year and then turned it on and made playoffs. So it's looking promising for them again. Number 20, I've got the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Alrighty.
you're just one spot above. That's where they were last week. Yeah, look what they won. Went 2-0 in the week. They get a big 7-0 win against the New York Islanders. And then they get a 4-2 win against the St. Louis Blues. Although that's the St. Louis Blues were on a back-to-back, so it's tough to sort of way too much on that game. But that 7-0 win against the Islanders was absolutely massive. So, yeah, a good week from them. They're in some good form at the moment as well. The question is as always with the Penguins, is how long can they keep it up, or how long is it going to be until they go into their little dip of form? That's why I don't want to move on them too quickly, because every time we do, they seem to bite us in the ass.
Alrighty, 18. I've got the New Jersey Devils. Another team not moving. Probably the next like 3-4 teams, so won't probably be moving just purely because they all had amazing weeks, and it's hard to hop, skip, and jump the teams that do the same thing. But Columbus, they OT win that. They go and beat Ottawa 6-2. Then on the back-to-back, lose to Boston 5-2. So honestly, a really good week. Yeah, you can't really ask for too much more. Probably shouldn't be going to OT against a team like Columbus, but like we said, Columbus have been a more competitive of the bottom end teams.
Yeah, exactly, and they're always in it. But yeah, you definitely shouldn't have to need a game tying goal with 5 minutes to go in the game, then be losing again within 2 minutes, and then getting another game time the last minute or two of the game against a team like Columbus. But that's been their season. A lot of question marks around it. But they get 4 out of 6 points, so can't complain about that. Number 18, a team that I was expecting to fall off a lot sooner than this, but it looks like they might finally start doing so. The Washington Capitals dropping 5 positions.
Alrighty.
It's one of my biggest drops, but I haven't actually been that impressed with them in terms of their style of play all season. I've just been impressed at how they've gotten the results. However, this week, some pretty poor results. They lose 5-1 to the New York Rangers, 5-1 to New York Islanders, and then on the back-to-back, they get a 2-3 shootout loss to the Nashville Predators. So only 1 point for the week, and apart from the Nashville game, they weren't all that competitive. And I think it's just going to be the start of a little bit of a fall. I don't want to say a capitulation, but a bit of a fall. Um, although they've been pretty good so far. So 4-3-3 in their last 10. So yeah, I'm calling. This is going to be the fall off of the Washington Capitals, and it might just be the start of Ovi scoring goals.
On to 17 for me, the Edmonton Oilers, and another one of those teams that had a decent week. They play 2 games, win both, 5-0 the Sharks, and they win in shootout against LA. So, look, they get maximum points. It is basically a draw against LA, but LA is a top 10 team, and they pretty much just handle and feed off the Pacific bottom end teams that are the Sharks. So I couldn't really move on them, especially when other teams are doing the same thing around them.
Yeah, it is hard because, as you said, they do feed on those lower end Pacific teams and lower end Central teams. But it's hard to argue. I think they've won 4 in a row. They've I don't know, what is it, 15 and 5 in their last 20 games or something. So they are an informed team and on the rise. That's why I moved them up a couple of spots this week. But we'll move on to my 16. I have the Carolina Hurricanes. These
All right,
guys give me an absolute headache.
it's the 12 for me. So this is the big differential, I guess.
Ooh. Did you have them a lot higher than me last week?
Only two
Or have you just...
positions.
Oh, you moved on them big. You like them
I,
this week, mate.
I don't know what you're talking about. They play 3 games, they win all 3. They beat Nashville, Montreal on the back-to-back, and then they beat Toronto. So 2 really good teams.
Oh,
And
look,
then they beat Montreal, who's on the back-to-back. So yeah, you win
I
all 3,
agree.
you move up.
I agree. They had a good week. They did have a good week. However, I still don't really trust them all that much.
And they
Because
are
they seem to be
6-1-3 in
doing
the
that.
last 10.
They are.
That was the other
Look,
thing.
don't get me wrong. That they're in some
Oh no no no
decent
no!
form.
I am getting you wrong because you got them too low. That's right. That's right. Carolina fans. I got you, Carolina fans. It's fine.
Well, I reckon Edmonton fans are going to come in and argue that you've got them too low because you've got them out of the top 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't know. For me, I don't trust Carolina enough. I don't trust their goaltending. Their defense has been woeful. Um, but I still, know what they're capable of. So, they may well be right where you've got them, or even higher as of next week, depending on how they continue to perform. But for now, I'm staying hesitant on them.
All right. It is my pick, I believe. So
It,
15,
it is your pick,
Nashville
yes.
Predators.
Ooh. Yeah, see, I've got them at 12. I didn't move them at all.
Yeah. So they only moved down the 1. They play 3 games. Lose to Carolina, as we mentioned. OT lose to Detroit. Then on the back-to-back, basically a draw against Washington, getting the shootout win. So they get 3 out of 6 points. It's basically a 500 week, but a little disappointing with how they performed. I'd say probably against Detroit in the fact they performed well but didn't get the win, especially in regulation, let alone only getting the 1 point. So they moved down the 1 as Carolina jump them, but otherwise they would have been flat.
Yeah, I just didn't move on them because I still think that they're performing pretty well, even though it was a disappointing week. So if they have another one, they probably will come down a few positions. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt this week. All right, 15 for me. I've got the New York Islanders.
Yeah, it's my 13.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a weird week if you're looking at the what's the name? Pittsburgh Penguins get 7-0 at home. 7-0 at home to a divisional rival. Um, and then 2 days later go and play another divisional rival and beat them 5-1 in the Washington Capitals. Um, yeah, so like a mixed bag, which is one of the reasons why they stayed the same. I mean, I felt like I could have punished them for the 7-0, but I felt like they also redeemed themselves 2 days later with a really good win. So, sometimes you can have those days. So yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty
kept them
much
at
it.
15.
Alrighty. I guess am I doing my pick? It's Arizona at 14.
Arizona at 14. I believe they're my 13. Just give me a second. I didn't do something crazy and put them in the top 10, did I? No, they're my 13.
Yeah, so they win both games. They beat Colorado in OT, and then they beat Anaheim. It's just 2-0. So on nothing to complain about there. Taking a top 10 team in my eyes in Colorado to OT and getting the extra point, and then getting the job done by getting a clean sheet against Anaheim. So I had to move up, but I just couldn't move up any further on them, unfortunately.
You know what's really impressive this month with these guys? They have won 2-0, 2-0, 1-0, 6-0. They've had 4 shutouts this month.
Hmm.
I just wanted to point that out because I remember seeing them have a lot of 2-0 shutouts as well. And I just wanted to check that. They've had 4 this month. They had a 2-0 shutout last month against Vegas. So what, 5 shutouts in the last probably 5 weeks.
Hmm.
That's an impressive stat for the Arizona Coyotes and a big reason why they're a wild card potential wild card candidate this year.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to number 11. I have the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yep.
Oh, here we go. We might be back on track here. Yeah, look, I mean, tough week for him, really. Like, 2-4 loss to the Ottawa Senators. Then deja vu, a bit of Groundhog Day for the 6-5 OT loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. However, they didn't have to come back from 5-0 down this time. They gave up the lead to go to overtime this time. And then a 3-2 loss in regulation to the Carolina Hurricanes on the back-to-back, which I really don't like when you've got so many teams on back-to-backs playing teams that aren't on back-to-backs. Just grinds my gears, but didn't finish the week well for Toronto, and yeah, 3 straight means you slide a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Starting the top 10, Vegas, number 10, and just taking the position away from Toronto there. They lose to Anaheim, then on the back to back they beat LA. So poor performance against Anaheim, losing 5-2, but on a back to back beating LA, it gets redeemed. So I didn't really move on them, but it was just Toronto being punished. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard again when they only play 2 games and you lose. You have a bad loss, but you have a good win. What are you supposed to do? I was pretty much the same. They only moved because of the Toronto, but I still am concerned. I think they've banked enough points and they're going to feed off of the West enough to still make the playoffs, but they do show some holes from time to time.
Yep.
All right, number 9 for me, I've got the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yep, same thing.
Who thought they would be stuck in our top tens for consecutive weeks, let alone in our top 10 at all? But yeah, look, they keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Well, they
And
beat Vancouver and then they go to OT and lose against Kraken on a back to back. So
on a back to
for
back.
some reason they play a back to back. But yeah, so honestly, really good week. I just couldn't move them up because other teams in this area had either pretty good weeks or just that too further ahead than them. But yeah, number 9.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, they're playing stupidly well, and they don't seem like they're going to go anywhere. I still have questions around whether that's the right call, but
Mm.
you can't
Yeah,
argue.
yeah, exactly. On to number 8, Florida Panthers. Um, moving up back into where they were at the beginning of the season. They played 3 games. They get all 3 wins, beating Tampa, beating New York Rangers back to back. They beat Montreal. So really good week. Pretty much flawless week, beating at least a really good team in New York, and then probably 2 middle range teams. So they move up. They're back in form by the looks of things.
Yeah, I mean, I, I think they've definitely proven that they're not going to be the team that they were last season, well, at least in the regular season, of just that up and down. And they've just proven that they're going to push as hard as they can to get back into that Stanley Cup final.
Hmm.
They're looking the goods. All right, my number 8, just dropping a little bit. I haven't jumped off their train just yet, but they are slipping a bit. The Los Angeles Kings.
All right, got them at 4.
Yeah, look, I get it. It's a bit of a drop, but they didn't have a good week at all. I think they lose what they go 1-2. They beat the Sharks at the start of the week 5-1, which you're expecting. They lose to the Golden Knights 2-3 in a tight game, and then they lose to the Edmonton Oilers 3-2 in shootout. However, my decision was based more off of what they've been doing lately, and I just feel like it's been a regular occurrence, and they've been dipping in form just a little bit. So they drop a little bit because of the teams around them playing some really, really good hockey at the moment. However, I think it would take quite a significant amount of, you know, poor performances for them to drop any further than this.
Alrighty, number 7, the Boston Bruins, being in top 10. One of the only 2 teams over 700 point percentage. They had a
Insane.
flawless week. They beat Buffalo 4-1, and then they beat New Jersey 5-2, who New Jersey were on a back-to-back. But they get the maximum points. They only concede 3 goals for the week, and they score 9. So look, they had to move up, and they're back into looking like they're back into that more consistent form that they were showing at the start of the season.
Yeah, exactly. They had a bit of a dip and a bit of a drop in form, but they are a contending team. Don't get that wrong. They've got two great goaltenders. They've got really good forwards, and they've got a solid defense. So, um, I think I don't actually know what happened with Charlie McAvoy. I know he went off in the Devils Boston game. So let's hope for Boston's sake that he's not too injured. But outside of that, they've still got a very good lineup. So yeah, I wouldn't be expecting them to go anywhere anytime soon. I think they're gonna be pretty consistent for the rest of the season.
Alrighty.
All right, number 5, moving into my top 5, we've got the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, number 6. Just
Yeah, look, what, 2 games? They lose 4-5 in OT to the Arizona Coyotes, and then they win 2-1 to St. Louis Blues. So, two decent sides, and they picked up 3 points for the week. So you can't really ask for too much more. When you're playing the 2 games, if you can get 3 out of 4 points, pretty much most of the season, that's going to get you into a playoff spot. So,
Yeah.
um,
My concern
yeah.
with them was they didn't have both those games. They didn't have shots over 30, 24 shots and then 23. So that is my concern, and they were outshot in both games, which have seen that Colorado have done this season where they haven't shot over 30, and I feel like that's where they weren't doing in the past seasons. So I thought I'd just mention that. On to 5, I have the Dallas Stars. Once again, a team not moving. Pretty much the exact same week almost to Colorado, but they lose in regulation to St. Louis, and then they go in OT win against Chicago. Um, yeah, it almost the same week as Colorado, just don't get the extra point and only getting 2, not 3.
Yeah, they probably had a weaker draw in terms
Yes.
of they come up against Chicago, um, whereas Colorado had Arizona. But outside of that, it's hard to move them off of one game. They're both playing some pretty good hockey at the moment. So yeah, I was the same as you. Keep them just above Colorado. All right, number 3, we have the Vancouver Canucks. Um,
Yep.
they play one game. They get absolutely smoked. Well, they get beaten 4-1. I won't say absolutely smoked.
I was gonna say.
Um,
Jeez.
they they, they, yeah, they actually they played reasonably. They lose 4-1. But yeah, like yeah, I looked at it and went, wow, they're third, but I can't drop them from one game. Their performances have been like really good. They were top of the league before Christmas, I think it was. So I wasn't gonna punish them for the
Yeah.
game. So
Well, they
they
move up
stay at
one for
number
me,
3 for
but it's
me.
just because LA has been on a little bit of a slide, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But that's why they're in top 3. On to number 2 for me, Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I may as well give it away. They'll remain as my number 1.
All right.
I contemplated swapping.
So they only play the 2 games. They OT lose to Chicago, so they don't get it done there. And then they get outshot pretty heavily against the Wild, but they get the 2 points, winning 4-2. So I wasn't really impressed with their week. It looks like Chicago has upset a few people this week with the way it was going. But yeah, so they went my number 1 obviously last week, and they move up the 1 thanks to LA moving down.
Yeah, I think I kept them number 1 because, it was only 2 games. They played relatively well in that Chicago game, and teams have those games, right, where you can absolutely dominate a game, but a goaltender standing on their head, you just can't get one through, and that's pretty much what was happening. So, um, it was hard to punish them. They still picked up 3 out of 4 points, even though the Rangers, who we're about to talk about, have had a really good week overall. I just didn't want to move on the Jets just yet.
Yeah, so I'll just fill in the Rangers.
May as well fill in the Rangers.
Yeah.
Their good week. They beat Washington Capitals 5-1. They lose to the Florida Panthers 3-4 in overtime, and they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 5-1. So as I said, really good week from the Rangers. They've been in absolutely stellar form this season. And honestly, probably deserve that number one spot just as much as the Jets, in my mind. So it really is a tight race at the top. All it's going to take is a slightly off week for the Jets or a really good week from the Rangers, and the Rangers will be back on top. But I've given the benefit of the doubt for the Jets because they have been one of the more informed teams in the comp
Alrighty.
lately.
Well, I guess we'll leave it there. So let us know what you think of our power rankings below. I'll leave a list of what your power rankings were for the week, and don't forget to like the video. Comment below and subscribe to the channel for more content and leave all notifications on. But till next time, we'll catch you guys.
See you next year. Bye.